Welcome to Answers from the Universe and the Andronicus transmissions on Wolf Spirit Radio, Ever Beyond Radio, and Studio 9 Jam on YouTube. With your host, Jessica Ariel Morocco, featuring JP as the voice of Andronicus. Please visit www.readingsbyrael.com, that's A-R-A-E-L.
From the future, by way of past. I bought my ticket for the 15th century. We started moving through a hole in history.
You're listening to Wolf Spirit Radio.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today at Answers from the Universe and the Andronicus transmissions. So, here we are, another day, same bad time, same bad channel.
Same wonder time, same wonder channel.
Okay. Yeah, I went and watched Wonder Woman. We were just discussing it and how they had the whole agenda of going against the Aries and everything. And I was just thinking, you know what, I think it's really against Hades. You want to know the truth of it all. But anyhow, it was an interesting show, and then at the end of the movie, there was a little note that Wonder Woman writes to Bruce Wayne. So now Bruce Wayne is somehow drawn into the story. So it's Batman.
Well, at stately Wayne Manor.
And there you go. So what do you think, JP?
Well, like I was just about to say, when I was reading these magazines as a kid, you know, everybody was in their own universe, weren't they? And as they started making films about them, and like how Batman became Batman, and the parents being killed and all that stuff, we see more of a more of a real picture. They're not cartoon characters anymore. And then they seem to have just taken on a life of their own now. Like, they all have their own adventures, and they meet with each other and team up to do different things. They never did that in the 60s. But I tell you what, my grandmother and grandfather had a newspaper shop, and in the 1960s, obviously these things were more rare. We didn't get much imports, and they got these imports. And every 2 weeks, I had the jamboree, and I read all the magazines on the rack that came from DC in one day. I really binged out on them, as they go these days. And then I would wait for the next 2 weeks, and so I would keep up with all the Batman. I like Batman, Superman, The Flash. You don't see much. Is there a film about the Flash and the Silver Surfer? Is there a Silver Surfer film?
No, I don't remember the Silver Surfer. The Flash, maybe. I have to think about it. I can't recall anything recent, but I can understand how you binged on it. I mean, that's essentially that has to be the building blocks of what Wolf Spirit Radio is right now. It's all sorts of
We're all
mysteries.
Superheroes. Well,
we're all superheroes, yeah.
If you just
take soldiers.
Yeah, exactly. If you take superhero out and replace that with super soldiers, and then you look at these beings, you might get an idea that actually they're not far from reality, and perhaps they were indeed based on experiments that the Cabal has done over the years to hybridize to make super soldiers. And these guys, the guys who could run really fast, look at Kruger runners. You got Batman. Well, Batman really doesn't have much in the way of superpowers. He's like a guy, but he's obviously bloodline. So he's got all the he's got the stately Wayne Manor and all that. So he's obviously a ruling class bloodline. So there's that. Then there's Superman, who's an ET. And on his planet, different rules apply, so he can fly and do all sorts of stuff here. It gets more real. as we get older. In fact, Star Trek becomes like, well, that's the secret space program, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Stargate, well, that's just the Stargate program, isn't it? You know, it's like,
I know. Hello. And they're already telling us.
It's not, you know, people used to, you know, my parents always used, oh, look down on that science fiction you were always into. And now I realize that I'm getting more truth. There's more truth in Star Trek than there is on CNN.
I know. And you know, well, I just want to go back to Batman, because Batman originally starts off with that really kind of corny, I mean, everyone loved it because, you know, you had the pow, bang, you know, sock, or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, that stuff. And, you know, just even the beginning of it was so exciting because they were in this fight and there was all these, like, you know, sound effects, essentially. And, you know, you look at it that way, it starts off very cartoon-like, and then it evolves into, you know, the Dark Knight. And then the Dark Knight is like, he's got this other side to him, and then he also, it's reminiscent of this cape thing that he has that people have found as a satellite. And I honest to God, you can put me on a lie detector, I have seen that cape. That cape was in my house at one time, or went by the window. And it showed up, I didn't know what it was, and then it disappeared, it goes off into the ethers. It was the weirdest thing. So I wonder about Batman being just a man who a do-gooder, as opposed to the mystique that, you know, evolved into later with, the more, the more modern version of Batman as it is today.
The darker Batman.
The darker Batman.
Because, you know, when we, sorry, we were talking about, you know, how Batman evolved out of a cartoon, and where did the idea come from? You know, where did the original cartoonists get these ideas from? And you never know. There may be in reality, or there may have been in reality, someone like Bruce Wayne, who was a bored rich kid who just turned out, you know, got fit and did stuff. Batman, you know, what I'm saying is that there may be a reality about someone like Batman.
I think there is. I definitely think there is, because I've seen it. You know, definitely have seen that energy, and I've seen that cape. And I've seen different aspects of whatever someone might perceive as Batman, although Batman may be something a little different than what people expect, but that's their interpretation of what he may look like, because he's maybe seen at night. The whole Superman thing, well, I'm just going to say what I saw with Andronicus recently, and it's going to be in the transmission as we read it, but this definitely goes along with the theme that I believe, from what I saw, that Andronicus is Superman.
Well, you know, like we're saying, you know, ETs are born on different planets with different physiology, different physicalities. It's, you know, he can disappear. All these dudes, these dudes are all like superheroes. Mm-hmm. You know, they appear and disappear at will. They don't need cars. They don't
need vehicles. They don't need spacecrafts either.
No.
I just want to bring that up. I mean, a lot of the ETs need vehicles, but Andronicus does not need a vehicle, and neither does Rhodan. Rhodan is on a vehicle because he has a crew, but he can move without it. The same with Zamfir.
But they were all on them. But Jess, they were all on a spaceship right at the beginning of the show, right at the beginning of the series. But they must
it doesn't matter.
Do you think that we've actually been looking at them in different states of evolution? You know, that like at the beginning, they were in like 3D, and they have evolved into their powers and into their power. Because remember, when we first met Andronicus, he was weakened. He was in a prison cell. He was a number. Mm-hmm. Very much a 3D, what the New World Order wants from us.
Right.
And we are going to go on the same journey, in a way. We're going to be going down the same roads. And I think that's another reason why they're giving it to us like this, is that, right at the beginning, they're just like us. And they're just almost in the same position as us, as getting rid of the Cabal. And look what they have become over thousands and thousands of years. But yeah, we'll all be magic supermen.
Well, I think that Andronicus said that he came from a higher place, and then he decided to come in. They did a memory wipe to some degree, like we do when we're born, and he wanted to re-experience it. So he had already lived prior to all of it, but saw himself as an empowered being, and empowered beings don't experience being subservient to anyone unless they allow themselves to be in that environment, and so they can be more compassionate and understanding. That's why it's very logical for many of them to be an incarnate, human, and then to experience everything that there is, all the pains, all the sorrows, all of the challenges, to be in one of the more difficult timelines and difficult time periods where things are right on the edge of some, come pretty close to some catastrophic things in the past 100 years or so. So quite a few major wars and minor wars, but even still, everything was volatile and all the environmental stuff. So why wouldn't they bring in people that who were once, in other experiences that had remembered a higher power to come in to help and assist? And I think there's plenty of us here right now that have a spark of remembrance, can make a difference.
Interesting. So how's your week been? Are you feeling a lot better now? You were feeling rather crook last week, weren't you?
No, I was doing okay. It's just the transition of the things going on. That's part of my world. So the things that happened with Rhodan, and I think some of it, I started to process it again, and I think it was, what am I feeling here? My feelings are relieved that he is here, and that it felt like it took a bit of a burden off of me. Like I had reached a certain point or a plateau where I could say, oh good, some of delegating some of the authority back to where it's manageable, that someone else can manage it, and it's not just me. And it was kind of, wow, this has been so much. It just brought me to tears. I didn't realize how much I was holding on to everything.
Yeah, holding the space till he arrived.
Till
they come. And I think really it was like, we as a group have been doing that as well. Holding this, as Andronicus has grown, there's more space, and it's like we've all been clearing the garden and making space, and that's interesting. That's exactly what's been going on in my house. Things are being cleared and space is being made, and new things are being brought in, and it's all being integrated, and it's all very in a good order. But obviously it's disruptive, and I think that probably weakened me to get these stomach issues. And
yeah.
But it's all go, and it's all good, even though it doesn't feel good at the time.
Well, it doesn't. Any type of change feels uncomfortable because it takes us out of our comfort zone and what we're accustomed to. But sometimes we need to shake things off and dust things out and then move things around and start looking from another perspective, it does bring in a new energy.
You know what I was thinking just now? I thought immediately in my stomach, and I thought, hang on a second, what's the thing, when you go up in a lift that is like super fast, what's the thing that goes? It's your tummy, isn't it? You feel your tummy being,
Yeah, yeah.
you know. So perhaps, these really are ascension feelings, and like, we're going up so fast that our stomachs are reacting. Stomach awareness. I have become stomach aware.
I want to bring up something that you said.
Don't bring up that sick joke.
No.
Sorry.
I can. All right. So I just want to say that you have an interesting perception of things, and that you usually talk about the show before we get into the show. And I just want to remind you that you did that again today, because we were talking about, you know, how they originated or whatever, and Rhodan is going to be bringing up that topic. And that also the whole Superman thing came up, and you bringing that up and who that might be, and Andronicus is going to be talking. And you'll see how that fits in.
How very
So I just want to say, you're doing it again.
Doing it again. It's because we're living these parallel experiences or memes. I mean, we know what memes are now. We all, you know, memes are things in themselves. They're not just photos with a word on them, but they bring you to a feeling, you know, that feeling when, you know, that there are domains of understanding, domains of knowing, as Alex Collier talks about them, that we've never had before. It's like, oh wow, I never thought of that. Because it's like you have to look from a different perspective to see that way of looking. And I'm sure we're going to be coming across examples of this in the transmissions today. But it's like the reflections of what, anyway, it just shows you how live and real time and real these transmissions are, Jess. Because I'm experiencing my life, and those words come from my experience of today. For instance, you know, I was talking about clearing the garden. That's what Becky's been doing. She's brilliant. You should see it. You should see the garden. It's going to be, it is a paradise, but it's going to be a heaven. I mean, it's just going to be beautiful. And we've also discovered that rather than having lost a rooster, I now have 2 roosters. Turns out the babies are not girls.
Oh, wow. Isn't that nice? Is one of them going to be Roger?
One of them, well, they're greys. They're not reds. So I don't know what he's going to look like. But
yeah. I got uncomfortable when you say greys, but that's okay.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, they're called Scottish greys, you know. So I just call them, because there's the Roger and we've renamed Tasty as well. Tasty, we don't want to call her Tasty anymore, even though she's old. So I've called her Bernadette.
No, I think that's politically incorrect for a pet. That's you know.
Yeah, a friend.
A friend, yes.
So we've renamed her Bernadette, and because her name will be Biddy, so we call her Biddy. You know.
Biddy. Oh, okay. All right. So I like that.
Yeah. So she's the old red. She's not a rooster. What do they call them? Apart from a boiler. That's really what they call them. But, yeah, she's an old boiler. But, she's there. She's like a granny. It's funny.
Yeah,
anyway, so that's my
have a little rooster symbol somewhere just to, I guess they're a part of us here. We get the wolves and the roosters.
I'm gonna have to record these creatures, because until a couple of days ago, they were like, peep, 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 peep. Oh, peep, peep, peep. You know what? This reminds me of the Vincala. It's like, they thought they were just harmless little reptile creatures until they started controlling everybody's minds.
So mind controlled by the rooster?
Yeah. So.
That'd be awesome, yeah.
I walk in, I love the roosters. They are beautiful. Yes. So, go.
It reminds me of the story of when I went to an early mediumship class years ago, and I thought I was, you know, everything was fine and we were supposed to be focusing on whatever we see, and all I could see was my guinea pig showing me a carrot, you know.
Oh,
I forgot to feed her before I left.
Exactly. So you're a guinea pig whisperer.
Yeah, I was a guinea pig. It was the funniest thing, and the teacher, right? Yeah, the teacher asked, well, what had everyone seen? I told them, they were all laughing. I said, yeah, I was communicating with me right now, so I need to go home and feed the guinea pig.
That is so
anyhow.
cute. That is so cute.
And
go on.
I want to make some announcements before I forget. We're going to have a Zoom room next week for the general public to come and join us, and we'll have discussions. And please, keep that in mind. We will do this next Monday evening directly after the show. And also today, I just want you to stay tuned because we have Steve McManus, and is going to be talking about some of the Luciferian theories, and just kind of going over some of that stuff. And Rolf will be joining us there as well, so it's going to be really great, the second hour. And I think that was about the extent of my announcements for today, but just to let people know if they're listening in, stay tuned.
Stay tuned for more exciting times on the Andronicus transmissions and answers from the universe.
There you go.
I think I should start doing some of these. That's what got me into trouble with to get onto Sean's show, because Mike had asked me to do a couple of announcements, just random announcements for various shows, and I saw Strange Universe Radio, and I immediately went into Irwin Allen mode and went, Strange Universe Radio, just as a laugh, because I was doing them, I did them really straight, and I did that one, and Mike put that onto the jingle itself, and that's what stuck. So it's been there since 2012.
Steve McManus, who used to run the Illuminati network, and of course it's counter Illuminati, but he did that on purpose. And he used to do a lot of conspiracy theory talk and all sorts of. That was the first network I was on.
Oh, cool.
And he had the best commercials. I mean, they were awesome. It was just funny, very funny. And I think they had some for hemp seed oil and just all sorts of stuff that people weren't talking about so much. And I don't know. I asked him if he had one that he could share with us, but I don't know about the copyrights. But we might have a pleasant little surprise there if he's able to share one of those commercials.
Oh, fabulous!
They're quite entertaining.
Fabulous. I'm very open to people. Indeed, I'm actually open to people producing little vignettes, if you like a sketch. Even if you thought it was a sketch or a song or something like that, and I can load that into the players when there are gaps between shows. They can play during when it's automated. So I'm very open for that.
Yeah.
If anybody's got some, some what's that? What do they call that? Fan fiction. Andronicus fan fiction.
Yeah.
Can we start that early?
Maybe we could get Ches to help us figure this out, because she's done some amazing memes and some other things related to. I think she did a video. She does some really amazing work. So, yeah, this has been fun, I'll tell you. But it's serious content. It really is authentic, information that I'm getting. But it's almost like they're becoming more and more. I'm feeling more and more engaged with it, and I do have fun with it too. So, I mean, I know some people think, well, it takes away from the seriousness of it. I'm sorry. I have to be myself. And I know, JP, you feel the same way.
Absolutely.
It's a serious topic, but, we should be able to laugh too and understand what this is all about. So.
Yeah. Because people are saying, these are terrible things that are going on. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And they're meant to go on to try and distract us from remaining in our center. Because this is what it's all about. It's like there's a load of flashing lights. Imagine we're going on a training, and we have to cross from one. There's a great big hall, and it's dark. There's no lights on, and you got to cross from one door to the other, and there are obstacles, and there are flashing lights, and explosions going off, and all sorts of sounds and weirdness, and you just have to keep going. All you need to do is go from one door to the other without being distracted. You know, it's like a long haul, and that's basically what that's life. You know.
Yeah. I mean, you have to realize that there's, you know, just because we have music or we have some other things, it does not detract from, you know, the actual content. Listen to what's being said, and but also understand that there's a level of peace, and, you know, as Rolf always says, don't worry, be happy. So, you know, you have that balance, and even though a lot of difficult things are going on, we're here to uplift each other, be compassionate, sympathetic, and let's kind of forge forward and not feel disempowered, you know, continuing to work on taking our power back in the highest potential for humanity. So with that said, I wanted to bring up also, JP, how you found the Stardust Resort and Casino that Andronicus was at.
Sweetheart, all I did, I went to Google, and I went to images, and I went Stardust, Nevada.
And there it is.
There it was. Wikipedia, it's been there. And you know what I was saying about these restaurants that have been there a long time?
Yep.
Absolutely, that would be one of those places. I mean, what kind of weirdo walks around Las Vegas? You know, what happens in Las Vegas stays in Las Vegas. It's one of those places. Yeah. All kinds of weirdness would go on, and nobody would bat an eyelid. So if somebody walks out of a wall, people will probably think, oh, that's some magician doing a trick.
Yeah, it is. It's very surreal there. I've been there, and it's has a very unusual feel for it, and there's no such thing as everything's 24 hours. So you could step out at 3 and 4 in the morning, and it's just as lively and active as if, you know, you were there in the afternoon or at night.
So
very unusual place.
So it's one of these places timeless. So time travelers would come and go from places like that because they're the kind of people that would be seen in that sort of place. So it's normal. It's like it's the Douglas Adams from the Hitchhiker's Guide. He had this concept of the everything somebody else's problem. Right? In order to become invisible, you just cloak yourself in somebody else's problem. It's like, I'm not your problem, so you can ignore me. It works. It works. I've tried it. It's actually
or the outfits, the clothing. If you have, you know, clothing from another time period, it is perfectly acceptable in a casino because they think you're part of an act.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or in New York City because they think you're going to do theater somewhere.
Or in San Francisco, but that's another reason.
Okay. I mean, just to be honest with you, you know, California just has an openness all around. So yeah, I mean, it's just certain cities are more appealing than others. So if you're looking for that type of individual, that's probably where to go. Instead of these, you know, very traditional places where people are expected to look a certain way. So maybe we should get started, or else we're not going to have time for the rest.
Let's all dress like Batman. All right, so
let's get the Batman cape and go satellite.
Yeah, and by the way, I also want to say thank you to Ches for her meme. She's made me a meme. It's just there in the chat room, which is. So here's the thing. Apparently. So,
you gonna send it to me so I can see it?
It's it's in, I'll just send you the, God, it's huge. Alright, copy. Jessica.
Ches very talented.
Very, very. Alright. There we go. I think you should be able to see that. So, as soon as I mention the word meme, memes are bursting out. That's clever, that one, architect, because it's actually moving. So I didn't realize you can put a GIF in a moving thing, a moving picture. I'll check that out. So,
so here's the thing.
Yeah. Because apparently, every so often I kind of cut in with, so here's the thing. Well, so somebody asked me a question. But I can't answer that question unless you know the answer to another question. So I have to lay the groundwork first. And so I often waffle on a lot. I'm sorry for that. But anyway. I'll try not to waffle on. Indeed. Let's get going, shall we?
Okay. Let's see where we're going to start. Let's start with Whyman.
Okay.
And yes, we have Whyman this week, for those that were asking.
There are some growing Whyman fans.
Yes.
I have to say. Okay. Now, I'm just going to need to get a level on this. One moment.
Hello. Hello. There we are.
Okay. Hello. Hello, Whyman. Tell me, how are you doing? I've been concerned since I saw the attack on Eden by the Dracos, Christos, and the Aquilans. It was devastating. They killed the Maeve of the Winter Court. They hurt my friend who was there to protect her. And they destroyed the land mass that was flourishing and green and turned it into blackness and death. I found the king of the Summer Court so strong from the battle, but they had done so much damage. Rainbow Mist showed me how to restore and heal the land. Tell me, what happens from here? How do we continue to protect? And will there be another attack on Eden, as I suspect?
Child, you have been very helpful in restoring much, but the Elven are suffering a great deal of discouragement. They have maintained the space of Eden and assisted in the protection of the Acar for millions of years, and now they feel defeated. They must restore their faith in themselves to be able to uphold the sacred chambers of life. Can you help encourage them to do so?
How would I do that, Whyman? I know an aspect of me is living there now to fill the space of the Winter Court of the Maeve in her absence. Will I be able to help in this way?
You must restore the faith of the Summer King, and he will do the rest. This will make them all strong. It is not just in words, but by deed will you regain trust among the Elven, as you have been absent so long.
I will honor your request from me.
Step up to the top once again, and your journey will be completed with me. The next time you return, it will be the last test required of you. All must journey up the tree of life. It is the only way to find the next level of truth.
I'm going there now.
Keep going. Oh, you missed a branch. Continue now. Up, higher. I see you at the top. Take the acorn and allow it to open and reveal your path. We are now one.
Thank you, Whyman.
I need to tell you that the Norsemen are awakening now, but it is too soon. I don't know how to delay it any further. There could be some problems or confusion, particularly when they see that one of my branches is injured.
Can I help restore that branch?
No. This is their job to find who caused the harm and seek them out. When the energy is restored, I will be healed.
But what can I do to help?
Don't leave Eden for any reason. Stay with us and help protect us further. You will be appreciated for your commitment to us.
I will stay as long as you will have me there.
We shall make a binding agreement to have you with us and protect you as well. The Elven will be pleased.
Much love to you, Whyman. We want you to thrive and to live long in flourishing.
Same to you, young one. Same to you.
Vroom, 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 vroom. Elven.
Elven.
So there's an aspect of you that is living with the Elven.
Yes. I had to fill in the place of the Maeve because they killed the Maeve.
So what's a Maeve?
The Maeve of the Winter Court. She's the queen of the Winter Court of the Eden. There's a summer court, winter court, spring court, and fall.
And how long does winter last?
Well, the Maeve was very tough, and she's the one that held back the bad pixie fae, I guess. That's what Patty Broussard says, but I believe it because I know I've seen the Maeve, and was pretty tough. So whoever took her down really took her out.
Mm. And
maybe this.
Go.
They're having me hold the space there for right now.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because that threatens humanity, that there was a disruption there, an attack on the space, and they did a lot of damage.
Are they still vulnerable?
The plant life where it was devastated, it looked like black goo. The Aquilans I've really had it with the Aquilans. They have some mutagenic that's pretty nasty, and if you saw what everything looked like, you would have been horrified what they did to nature.
Is the light a kind of purple that they use?
It's kind of like their ink, kind of like how they have that kind of dark black color. Yeah.
Sounds like red mercury. Sounds like what they did when they were experimenting with it. It would turn all life to black gunge.
Yeah, that's exactly what it looks like. And there was a point where I saw it looked like, if you burn a tire and the gray smoke that comes up, which is really smells bad and toxic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then all the Elven were on the ground. They're just laying there. And some of them were dead, some of them were revived. The Summer King, had been hit hard on his head. Side of his head was sliced. And I had to go over there and do some healing on his head. And it was a difficult situation. Then we went to the Winter Court and saw that they had already taken out the Maeve, and there was one of her protectors was on the ground tied up. So they came to do a lot of damage, but not necessarily completely destroy it. But I had the feeling that they were going to go back there again, and I was shocked. And originally Shiva brought me there. I didn't know what was going on, but he wanted me to see it. And there was there was like a big like fence, he broke it so I can get in, and that's when I saw everything. So that's essentially what happened.
Right. And when did you come across this? When did it?
Last week.
Last week.
It all happened last week. I couldn't sleep. I had to have people help me so I can go over there, and then we started doing some healing on the area.
Right. So presumably you're getting a team together to help with this.
Yeah. Well,
and
Patty
hopefully,
Broussard works with them. Works with, she calls herself Gaia's Advocate, and we did do some work together. and try to send healing to the area. And we spent, a couple hours doing whatever we could to send some healing, and I wouldn't stop until I could actually see it change. And the advantage that I have is that I can see into the space. But I was pretty shocked, but I know Shiva gave me the heads up and let me know what was going on. So that affects all of humanity. That's by the Tree of Life. That's by Whyman. That's it's just getting close. And that this is reminiscent of this war in Eka. And so what they did was whatever problems they're causing up there, then they went to Eden.
So these are, these are not actual physical places on the earth. These are realms that are within the earth. Are they like in inner chambers kind of thing?
No, it's not within the earth. It's,
in a different dimensional
in
space.
dimension, yeah.
So,
yeah, it's in another dimensional space. But a place that I can access. And the Elven are, an ancient species, and they're, overseeing everything there. So they're the caretakers there, and they've become discouraged because they got hit so hard, and so many of them got hurt. And they were accustomed to being, valiant warriors, protectors. And so, I think that's what Whyman's concern was, but, it looks like he wants the Summer King to become more empowered. And I don't know how long I'm going to be there, but I'll be there as long as they want me to.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, war on every dimension really here.
Well, that's why it is.
That's why we
as it is above, so it is, below, or as it is below, so it is above. We're running out of time here. We gotta keep moving.
Oh shit, yeah, stop. Let's stop. But the thing is, there's so much in this particular communication, like the Norsemen are awakening.
Yes.
That doesn't sound good. Like, he says, I have to warn you there. Why do you need warning?
Yeah. Well, because if the Norsemen find out who broke the branch, then it's not going to be a happy situation.
They're not going to be happy campers.
No, they're going to go looking for them. So whoever's guilty of breaking the branch, too bad. That's all I'm going to say.
Just hope it wasn't me.
No, you would know.
Yeah.
This was a deliberate action. Yeah. It was, probably some species. And to be honest with you, I don't know who that would be.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I'm thinking about because again I was standing and looking at my cherry tree. This thing is overgrown. It's huge, and it needs some branches cut. That's like I was thinking about cutting branches with it. It's like,
that's what I'm talking about, JP.
Maybe not. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe until the winter. I'll get some advice.
Yeah.
But
yes. Well, I think Whyman doesn't object to you pruning a tree. It's just,
It's just him.
Well, it's a reflection of something else.
This is something I've heard years, for quite a long while, that there was a diseased branch of the Tree of Life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And here you are, talking to the Tree of Life himself.
Yeah.
And of course you can talk to it. Everything's got a personality, yeah.
Yeah, they communicate. There's a sense of knowing. You have to be. People say, well, it's kind of naive or whatever. Well, who's most open to all of this stuff? Usually a child, and unfortunately, I'm juvenile enough. I can still communicate with them. I just never really closed that door. So it's an innocence and without negative intention and just pure love. And people want to know what's the key to it. It's basically, that's what it is. It's non-judgmental, pure love, and just an innocence and willingness to want to communicate. And you'll be heard, and you'll also be, open up channels of communication then.
Right. So we've got, well, I'll deal with you in a minute, Rolf, but, I'm sure you could actually send me your telephone number and I'll call you. I'll call you offline. So,
Okay. Oh, yeah, I can send you.
Yeah, we can get everybody, don't worry if you can't connect through Skype, because Skype is like the Roman Empire. It's just kind of crumbling and there's like bits and they're not fixing bits. Fixing the bits that crumble. Who should we go to next, my dear?
Let's go to Rhodan.
There's a reason why things look as they do. When black looks white and white looks red, nothing seems to have order and or meaning this way. The ridiculous becomes the norm, and the sideway turns of disjointed confusions. We have been perplexed at the minds of disruptive complexities of confusion. They do not do this out of intention, but state of mind, a loss of source as connection. It results in various forms of madness. Imagine sifting through this, trying to make sense of what the problem is. There are files beyond files beyond files of purposeless banter of nothing. Yet they hold the power grids between their fingers like a puppet master, tugging on the strings of all the many puppets. What madness, what chaos, what grandiose disorder. I would love nothing more to just wipe my hands clean of this mess, with the exception that all of you are caught in this horrible mess. So I'm sitting back and assessing the best way to pluck each thread from his head until he lets go of the rest. Suma, you have performed a stellar job lately, far outweighing your work in the past. I am pleased by your efforts to help us find perpetrators in these efforts. We are far from completion, but we at least can now see clearly who created these problems.
Do you still want me to call you Quasar?
But that is my name. What else would I be called?
I always called you Rhodan. You were Odin.
Go on. What other names do I go by? I can hear them all now. I see, so you remember me as someone else. Ah, that's the reason why you greeted me as you did, with open arms and without fear. You wanted nothing more than to speak to me, is that correct?
Yes. I don't understand what is going on here, but I'm thinking this is you now before you became all the others.
That's correct, but this part never happened before. How did you find me?
I don't know. Looking for a friend to resolve a problem, and there you were.
I will say you have piqued my interest on how you approach things. Quick to move in without apprehension and discovering as you go without assessing. Interesting process, but not logical at all. I can see you are a highly emotional being. So very different from us. Tell me, how is it that you move through all the emotions and feelings and still get anything done?
Trust me, it's not easy. It's the way we are, and we learn to work through it.
Why do you call me Rhodan? Rhodan?
That's what you told me your name is.
Oh, so then I will be Rhodan to you. Quasar covers multi-universes. I will leave it simple for you. Continue to call my name Rhodan.
Oh, very well. So what happened to your aspect who went to Iceland? It seems he's still there, but not communicating very much.
He is growing old and spending time with his children, searching for rejuvenation. I am here to help him do that. I can do that for you as well as the planet.
You mean like the Fountain of Youth?
It's more than the Fountain of Youth. Rejuvenation is beyond your human comprehension. We need to rejuvenate your planet, but first break through your systems without harming anyone.
Is that the reason why you're here?
I came to respond to my future self, to expand further out. When I arrived, I could see why I was asking for help. There are more problems all around that seem to go on forever in time. Let me tell you something. I can resolve many of these problems easily as Quasar, but not as Rhodan right now. My other aspect took a heavy hit by the one named Hades. I will resolve that for him very soon. The planet will feel it in a good way. So, would you care to journey with me moving forward?
Yes, I would, and see the things I should see and learn about the things I should learn about.
So be it. Now then, usher in the light. Oops, you're right.
All right.
Yeah, kaboom. Shall we quickly move on? Or are there matters arising? Yeah, Quasar. Yeah. So he's really called Quasar, and he incarnated as Rhodan later on.
Yeah, he doesn't know. He's actually this consciousness of multi-universes. That's pretty wild.
Far out. Does he have a dimension? Or is he like Max?
We didn't even go there.
Yeah, Max in the 17th dimension on the 23rd universe, the 14th parallel of the 19th time. Yeah. I don't know. It's like, it just gets bigger, doesn't it? It used to be.
I know. And
it used to be aliens were from Venus, okay?
Yeah.
and then they were from Mars, and then they, you know.
Max is from the 21st.
Yeah. Well.
Max, Max goes all over the place.
Yeah. We have quite a few, actually. A lot of us do.
Yeah.
Now, there was something. There's something here. That there was, oh yes. Quick to move in without apprehension and discovering as you go without assessing. Interesting process, but not logical at all. I love that. That is so alien.
He's essentially saying, you're a spontaneous female.
Yeah, but it's a human thing. But we all do that. We all step right into the weirdness.
I think even when I was in ET, I was that way. I think it's very like, I want to say it's fearless. Mm-hmm. Because and here again, I revert back to the childlike kind of consciousness where...
because children are fearless. You have to be taught fear.
Yeah, so it's not like I'm methodically going in and assessing things. I will look at a portal and I'll be already in there, not, before my mind even wraps my head around it. I just will take off. And so I just, at first I had a problem with it. I was like, I need to gain control of this. And then I realized it seems to be doing exactly what I would naturally do. So maybe I should let it happen. But, he found it amusing. I think he was, sort of analyzing the way I was doing things. And I'm kind of shocked because I think in a certain timeline I was not supposed to have met him in this place at this time.
Well, it does seem to be happened. Like they're very different from where you were, So, yeah. That's, sorry, I'm trying to do three things at once. He does seem to have, this, he's not like Rhodan, like you welcomed him with open arms. What did he look like to you?
Like Rhodan.
All right.
He looked like Rhodan with white hair. And he was sitting in a wheelchair, but I knew him right away. And I went to give him a hug.
And he's sitting in a wheelchair?
He was sitting in a wheelchair in a lab. But it wasn't a regular lab, it was I guess they called it the clean room, like a clean room or a sanitation room, mm-hmm. where they would, purge themselves of anything that would contaminate the space. That was very strange because the first thing I went and it looked like a lab. Everyone's in lab coats and then I kind of turn the corner and there he is in a wheelchair. And I recognized him right away. I gave him a hug and I mean, he received the hug. He didn't have any problem with that.
Mm.
And then I think afterwards he thought about it. I don't know.
And, last week, didn't he, get up out of the wheelchair as well?
Yeah, he said he didn't need it.
Yeah, what do you think? I'm the god of everything. Do you think I need a wheelchair or something? That was really funny. So, I think we better move on. We have
Andronicus next.
Andronicus.
Hello, Andronicus. There was a discussion between me and a friend. We were talking about this little girl in a pink dress and how she saw this little girl walking through a cemetery and balancing on a curb with, one foot in front of the other, like she was walking on a balance beam. And I asked her, did this child seem to be unhappy? And my friend just said, no, she was alone playing and seems like she was having fun just walking along the curb and I know I saw it, she said. I saw something that no one else saw, just like you see. And when I thought, being excited about it, I thought about how familiar this sounded like me. This little girl walking on the curb like that is something that I would have done when I was younger. And so I asked an angel to assist me, and a very large angel with beautiful large white wings came down and lifted the child up in the air as he observed her and then aged her to see who she was and what she would look like in the future when she got older. And immediately I knew it was Andronicus. Andronicus was the angel. And then he picked up the child and began to leave. And I said, Andronicus, why do you have an aspect of me?
I'm finding you through time in all incarnations. Your soul was trapped here during the rum trade where you lived by the dock in a brothel. You were very injured emotionally by the oppressed and overworked shipbuilders. They didn't have room for love since their lives were so very harsh. They sold rum for cheap and used it for the slave trade. There were many oppressors, including the one you met, the spirit you spoke to who was of influence on the dock, the merchant.
Why is it that I'm always seen with you and others as a young child?
Oh, it is the age of innocence. We make sure you're always safe at this time when we allow you to heal. Your work is being amongst many of the burdened and harsh realities of Earth and other civilizations. And at times it's too much for you to bear.
Yes, it's very true. Even the lifetime I've been at a point of not being able to handle anymore.
You're preserved like the rest of us. We have you, always. I will not integrate this part into you until there is deeper healing from the child's traumas of being alive during one of the harshest time periods of the Americas, the 1700s. As you remember, you were one of my soldiers as well during that time.
I do remember.
I must now go and deliver you to the healers to help you understand your experience. There won't be many more like that in the future. We have moved you onto another level of experience where you'll be on another role. Tell me, how are you doing now?
I seem to be okay. The relief that Rhodan had arrived eased my mind a lot. I was able to cry and release the emotions of being in the war zones of dimensions.
No need to worry. We have arrived as well to change the plans of many things.
I saw you and Meetis going after the Draco colonies. You flew up like Superman. It was very cool.
Finally caught Draconis with your help.
I made the mistake of telling him that I destroyed a few of his planets. He has not quite forgiven me for that. I saw you disguised as a large white rabbit, and when he arrived he was challenging me and could sense you were around. He was not happy. And as a result of that day, my car broke down that day. It is always something.
Well, I destroyed many ancient tiers of their civilization where they cannot recover any of it. Even their hybrids will suffer. The battle there is almost won, but there are still others looking to destroy the planet to rebuild it for themselves. It's the allurement of power. I told Draconis I took his wife because he wanted to take away my little girl and use you for his agendas. It's a good thing his son didn't agree to it as well. We're now on our way back. Right. Any
Okay, off to Meetis.
any matters arising from that? Yeah. Oh.
What, the Superman reference? He actually had his right hand forward, flying up, like, exactly like Superman would.
Up and away!
He went off, and they were like a multi-tiered colonies, almost like pie-shaped, one above the other, floating. And Meetis arrived too. He kind of flew up that way as well. So I wonder, he's also was in a warrior mode.
So let's have a look at Meetis as well. So I'm just going to make a adjustment. Where has it gone? Oh, it hasn't crashed, has it? Don't tell me you've crashed. Oh, there we go. That was slow. It's like my word was not responding very chirpily. Let's put it that way. And there we go. And I'll just make that a nice large text. Bold, 14-point bold. There we go. No? Oh man, that's slow. Why is my computer running really slowly? That's strange. That's very strange. There we go. Okay. I'm ready. Word is behaving very slowly. It's not responding in time. Right. And hello, Flower. I am wounded, my love. I was in the fire saving souls and helping the distraught find their way back. I heard you spoke to Ray, telling me you're watching over his people and that we remember our agreement with him. He was once the captain, always in charge and never a missing person. We loved him for his virtue. A fine man he is, that Ray. A ray of light, someone would say. I did all I could without breaking the laws of interference. You know I do play by the rule book. We all know what the rules are and there are no excuses. But I can say that something much worse was intended for Britain. They had their eyes on the monarch gold and gems, and this would be a travesty for many reasons to see London fall. I said I would not stay the course if they disarmed me from defence. It is little harm to see me gain control again. Why did they let the power go to that fool Barber? Enough, I said.
Are you saying that Phaeton is in control of London? He is barely aware of his own reality, let alone someone else's. He strolls about the earth like a lost man. Who left him in charge of something so important?
Hades, of course. He minds no man and chooses the benefit of him. He chooses the benefit of him for... He minds no man and chooses the benefit of it for himself. He strives only to take the harvest of Luce and nothing more than the energy derived from the sorrows and pains of humanity. This is how all the pains and sufferings begin. He begins to get hungry and longing for life. Then the problem hits. He has hit Phaeton the hardest. Phaeton is indeed in great need of rescuing. Once he is out of the grips, he will be free to heal and no longer be his puppet. The puppet master goes to great lengths to imprison souls. Why should any serve him? It is the lust for power, my love.
Then we should free Phaeton. Will this help matters at all?
Oh, yes, very much so. He has his hind quarters backed up against a stone wall. Tell me, Flower, how
fare thee?
Sorry. Tell me, Flower, how fare thee, my love? This must be quite difficult on your soul, but you do seem quite uplifted. Why does the prince require so much of your attention? He's never spoken to me with more than 3 words at a time. You know, you may have bitten off more than you can chew.
I'm sure I have, Meetis, but what is said has been said. There is nothing further for me to explain.
The the art of love, my bumblebee. So fanciful and light, so lofty and deliriously delightful. I do treasure those moments myself. Although the one chasing me now leaves such a sour taste in my mouth right now, I can barely swallow in her presence without the bitterness of an asp flowing from her tongue. Well, soon she will have given up her attempts to wield her will upon me. I shall take leave a fortnight from now and go back, step into the past and ease my mind a bit with a bit of melodic solace amongst friends. Here's a song for you, dear friend Primus. You know, well, Primus, it will do you well to review the songs I have shared with you. A great peace upon your soul, my beloved brother. I do care for you, and your strength and courage are stellar to behold. All right. Now, I've just made my guitar hang up. And I just pulled out my headphones. I made my guitar hanger a little closer, so I just had to reach back, but then it fell off. So, there you go. I've done it again. There go the headphones. Maybe you want to talk about what's coming up next?
Yeah, we have Steve McManus is coming up next. We're going to have a little song in between, and then we bring Steve McManus and Rolf.
Thank you. We are brothers, all the same. Let them tear down all our names. We will strive amongst the gold, for this is what we've been told. I am happy to declare I will never live in fear. Write poetry for fun in front of everyone. It will be our time to dance, to pocket and to prance, to lift our gait to cellos and flute and string-bound pans. We don't need to fight a war. We have learned to open doors and take the riches made from it to give to all the poor, to give to all the poor. La la la, la la la. La la la, la la la, la la la, la la la. We will suffer no more. La la la, la la la. I will close that door for sure. La la la, la la la. Let's take all the sorrow back, and we'll make sure we don't look back. La la la. Sing along, everyone. La la la. La la la. La la la. Ooh.
Okay, so we're back. We were noticing the music was going a little too long, and we want to get you guys to meet everyone here. I wanted to introduce Steve McManus, who used to be the producer over the Illuminati, the CEO of the Illuminati Network, which was the counter of the Illuminati, and also has done much radio and has his own YouTube channel, Forbidden America, talking about all sorts of things. And hello, Steve. How are you today?
Hello, Steve. How are you today as well? It goes down really well with some Guinness.
All right, I'll have a Guinness.
Okay, yeah, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. And of course, we have Rolf here, and Rolf has been on the show before and has some interesting, ideas and something that I think people should hear. So, hello, Rolf. How are you today?
Hello, everyone. I'm doing fine, thank you. Hope you are the same. And JP, Steve, nice to meet you all.
Hey, how are you?
Okay, so Steve, we were discussing, we had quite a discussion about the whole agenda, the Luciferian agenda, which is maybe a corporate or a government agenda to bring in an event according to what people perceive as the belief system of Christianity, and the dark and the light, and the Jesus, the Christ and the Antichrist.
Right.
What are your thoughts on this?
We got roughly 35 minutes left. Am I correct in that?
Yes.
Okay. So I can
have
only
to come back again. That's why.
Yeah, we're going to have to come back, and the best we're going to be able to do right now is for me to bullet this. Okay.
Okay.
We can make bullet points, and this is one of my main areas of research for the last 30 years. And by research, I don't mean I read a book and I listened to a fundamentalist preacher that tours the different police departments across, the United States. All of that is, can we swear on this network?
No.
Okay. Good. I'm glad I asked first.
Well, we put it on YouTube, and, YouTube does the advertiser-friendly thing, and, right. Feel free to speak and maybe be creative in your, cussing.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty good at that. And so, basically, this is the bullet points that you need to remember, that the Christianity that you have come to know and that you've been, taught about, whether or not you're Christian is irrelevant, that you've come to be aware of on this planet, it's not what you think it is. It is completely, it's so far off base as to what's actually going on that it really is, when they say that we have the sheep in our flock and that that's very appropriate. I do not have a problem with people who profess to be Christian. I don't have a problem with anybody with any particular tenet or set of tenets that they follow, so long as they're not out to have it their way and screw the rest of you. And there's too many of those types in the world right now. There's a lot of low vibration right now. But when you talk about a Luciferian agenda, and you talk about Lucifer being the epitome of, or the rampart of all that is evil and against humanity and against God, you haven't read mythology, you haven't read the books of the old religions, and you haven't read the objective research. It isn't what, it's like when you start a rumor in school, and it's like playing telephone. It's got one version now, but about the 20th or 30th time somebody talks about it, it's a completely different story. That's what happened with religion. And if you look at the etymological research that goes back to how things got named and the political and cultural climates in which those words were born and what that means, we are so far from what it originated as that we don't have any understanding as a society as to what was really going on. And so we're lost. And the planet very much shows that right now. To say that there's a Luciferian agenda is to say that there are people, an agenda requires a lot of people to follow a tenet or a set of beliefs. And if you're following a Luciferian tenet, you're following purportedly the set of rules which is actively and consciously trying to undermine the best interests of humanity and the best interests of humanity as they understand God to want it to be that way, whatever form of God they choose to believe in. And by God, I mean, the halos and the benevolence and all of that. New Testament type God, not Old Testament type God. Old Testament type God is, lightning bolt up your butt. New Testament type God is, oh, you have a boo-boo, come over here and let me give you a hug and we'll make it better. Those are the differences in one sentence. Is there an agenda? The correct answer is yes and no. Yes, there's an agenda because of the final result, but it's a semantic difference between that and did they sit down somewhere at a clandestine location, these various people in high places, and say, how do we take over the world? How do we enslave the human race? How do we, do all these things? For Lucifer. They didn't do that. I can tell you they didn't do that.
No, I don't think they did that.
No. And anybody that really believes that that's true, and that there's a guy lurking somewhere in the bowels of the earth with horns who's, wringing his hands and going every time some more of these horrible things happen because that's his master plan. You are sadly deluded. It really is biology, and it really is psychology, which is part of biology, and we are responsible for our own stuff. There's no devil that made you do anything. And that goes for the people in high places as well. And what do I mean by a semantic difference? The semantic difference is, even though they didn't sit down and say, oh, mighty Lucifer, we're going to serve you and, work against the best interests of the human race. And, we put up the Georgia Guidestones and we're going to depopulate the earth and we're going to kill everybody by the hundreds of millions and millions. And they didn't do that. But what are they doing? By happenstance and by natural progression, by biological development, which includes psychological development as part of it, you're getting it anyway. It's a semantic difference. It wasn't by design, but it's happening anyway. So is the planet really being injured by the human race right now? Well, the answer is obviously yes. Is it enough to kill the whole planet? I think that's debatable, but it's not the point. The point is, are we being a bunch of dirtbags by dumping coal ash in rivers and by allowing the Pacific Rim to make electronic products for us and they just dump the silver solder right in the water and right on the ground? Yeah, that's not okay. And the more we do it and the more we do it and the more we do it, it's really not okay. And are there people who don't care about the welfare of others in large numbers? As long as they get what they want, they don't care about anybody else. Well, of course. And you can look at the governments of almost every Western country and in some of the ones in the East as well. And they are operating in such a way that's quite obvious. Did that mean they sat at a round table and really came up with a plan to do that? No. They're just acting very selfishly. So ultimately, does it have an effect of being what one might refer to as Luciferian? Well, sure, it does. But it doesn't mean that there's an intelligence behind it that's directing with the marionette strings all these human beings who are in on it, who are out to get ya. That's crap. That isn't happening. And I can tell you that because I'm an occultist and I've been a practicing occultist for decades. And I know about the darkness and I know about the light and I know what workings are actual true energy manipulation, and I know how much of it is BS. For instance, when you say Luciferian, you're really synonymously talking about Satanists and Satanism in its various forms. And there's like 6 different forms of it that are legit and real. And then there's a whole bunch of what I call non-legitimate forms of it, which are from people who are not educated about it or anything else for that matter. They're just angry at the world for one reason or another because they feel disenfranchised. And they were probably raised in horrible situations, and as a result, they're psychologically injured, and they just want to lash out at the world. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about intelligent, well-read, often affluent and well-placed people who might be considered pretty close in societal and financial stature to the 1%, although they don't have to be that high up. who understand Satanism. Those people, the traditional quote-unquote Satanists, are not what you think they are. They're not out, working against your best interests. They're actually working in your best interests. They want to exalt humankind. They want to support things like free medicine for all and the arts. And they revere children because they see them as innocent and incapable of transgressing against anyone. They would give their lives to protect your children if need be. They're the safest people in the world to leave your kids with, which is the antithesis of what you've been taught. What do you mean I leave my kid in a Satanist? Yeah. Oh my God.
So it's, in essence, what you're saying is that these are real people. Some of these are real people. I mean, there are clearly some bad people that are doing the atypical Satanist thing where they find a book somewhere, copy everything, and decide they're going to kill something.
Well, right. But even they are misled easily. For instance, when you look at the Necronomicon, it's a real book.
Yeah.
But it's not a real book. It's a real book that was written as fiction. It's treated like a grimoire.
Who was the author? That was
Wells, I believe.
Was it Wells?
I think it was Wells.
I thought it was I forget what his name is.
I could be mistaken because I'm half jacked on pharmaceuticals, so.
No, that's not a good thing.
It's either that or I cry, so I'll do it this way.
Okay, don't cry. I know, because you have serious back issues, so you're taking some,
mm-hmm.
So let's say Rolf.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on this?
Oh wow. Yeah. I think Steve's making some pretty good points. Sometimes it feels like we're living in a kind of a upside down world. Like everything is the opposite of what we want it to be. Like the good people get hit, the evil gets rewarded, stuff like that, And I don't think, maybe I'm skipping some stuff now and going right to the point I want to make in this show, but it's like we don't need an Antichrist and we don't need a Christ either. We don't need the bad stuff that's going on right now, and we don't need a savior. We need to claim back our own world, claim back our own sovereignty, be our own saviors.
That's right. It's absolutely correct. We need each other, and we need to learn to be self-sufficient, and we need to learn to stand up for what's right, and have enough courage to stand up against a larger number who isn't on the same page with you and say, you know what, you can be against me all you want, but this is the right thing to do. This is the compassionate thing to do, and this is the fair thing to do. And do it. Just do it.
And religion typically has been the conduit for wars. It has been the excuse or the reasoning behind wars or the differences that separate people rather than bring them together.
There are only two rules to remember, and I'm quite serious about this, and I'm not being facetious, and I'm not being allegorical. This is like literal, and this is the real deal. Two only. Only. The first rule is the lie always changes. And the second rule is follow the money. Right. So, and what you just said about religion being the cause of all these woes, well, that's about follow the money. What do you think war is? It makes a few people a buttload of money. And I mean money like you can't even fathom.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Wars have lined a lot of pockets. Way more than we wanted to acknowledge.
We're here with two Americans and two people from the UK. I'm willing to bet that that's the truth. Or at least one might be in Europe and one is in the UK, and we can argue about whether or not it's part of Europe, but whatever.
Yeah, Holland. We're just say Europeans then.
Yeah.
But anyway, but we're not going to talk about Ireland. But anyway, so we all understand the size of a football field, whether it be soccer like we call it, or whether it be football like you call it. That's a pretty big field, right? And if you take that field and you put a loading pallet on there and you fill it up with enough money that's been vacuum packed in $100 bills to make it cubical, right? That's $500 million, right? And then you take and double that now so that it's about as tall as you, a little taller than you. And then you put enough of those double loaded pallets on that field to cover it all the way across and all the way down to the end. Now you got $1 trillion. That's what it looks like. Vacuum packed. $100 bills. And so you got to stop and think about what that would really look like.
So I just want to get back to you. The Necromonicon is from H.P. Lovecraft.
That's what I meant, Lovecraft, yeah.
Lovecraft, yeah. And yeah, he was a creepy guy, but he was kind of cool in a creepy way.
Well, he wrote the book. He wrote the book, and he wrote the book, and he wanted to talk about things like Cthulhu and all this stuff, and that's great. And people read it, and they're like, oh my God. And they'll actually use it to follow these what they think are arcane, ritualistic things, and they're deluding themselves.
But he talks about other dimensional space, which for me, I could relate to what he was saying. I was like, oh, cool, someone else knows what I'm talking about.
Well, many scientists have written novels, and they've incorporated what they know from research into the story, right? Mm-hmm. Well, it's the same thing H.G. Wells knows about interdimensional. I think he was pharmaceutically assisted, but that doesn't invalidate his research.
You think so? I think he was a time traveler, to be honest with you.
Well, I think he was too, but, I think he's...
I mean, there's no way he can get some of the information that he had.
Right.
And if you look at the secret space program, some of the things that they know, and then more than one agrees upon it. So they're validating that they've been in these spaces and they know what it looks like, and then a remote viewer can look at it as well to further validate it. So you have indications of our past, like H.G. Wells, and there's what's the one, Journey to the Center of the Earth, and all that. What is his name? I can't even think. I don't know why I can't think of his name right now. But you know what I'm talking about.
I do. Another thing that bears mentioning is that when I do remote viewing, what it teaches me is that what we think of as time isn't what time really is. Because I can see something instantaneously. Like, for instance, if you're waiting for a radio transmission on the moon, it's going to take a little bit to get to you. Not very long, but long enough. If you're going to wait for a radio transmission on Mars, I think it's like 9 minutes. You got to wait like 9 minutes to get the transmission, and then when you answer them, it takes 9 minutes to get back. So just to say, yeah, what do you want, takes 18 minutes. Okay, so there's time, one way to look at it. But when you remote view, it's instantaneous. There is no lag in time. And yet your consciousness can see it right now. So having experienced that, I know that time is only a construct that we've constructed. So It's important to remember that.
And getting back to the topic, how many reasons are there for them to play out this whole agenda of money-making venture, whether it's corporate, government, whoever it is, that feels they have something to gain in creating this whole scenario of a one world order, an antichrist, to play this thing through. So they take this book called the Bible, they find Revelations, which I've read through the Bible 7 times, guys. I do know what I'm very familiar with it. I've listened to many scholars who have dissected and gone through Revelations and claim to, have an idea of exactly what the meaning is. And then they cross-reference it to Nostradamus, which is contrary to Christianity, but for some reason, for their cause, that sort of works, that they relate that there is going to be this Antichrist that's going to come in. So we're not only laying a groundwork for a major war right here that we don't have to go through, and we're already setting the stage for some person to step through, and only to find out that there are some of these very wealthy families already have relatives that are poised to be in those positions.
Well,
this is the part that started disturbing me. It started to line up that they took this and then started to fit it into their cause because the rest of the population know the story.
It's important to remember that there are several elements at hand here. One of those elements is that the story of the Passion, which is the crucifixion, the resurrection, and all that, may not have happened anywhere near like you think it did. And that, Yeshua ben Yusuf, who we refer to as, erroneously as Jesus, didn't exist as we think he did. Okay? Well, we've been misled about a lot of stuff. One of the things that the little pieces that are taken out of context or the circumstances were changed in the story in order to keep us misled, but the elements within the story are still real, such as when he was lanced, the person on the cross was lanced, and that the blood that got into one of the soldiers' eyes cured something almost immediately.
The Spear of Destiny.
The Spear of Destiny has disappeared, which means it was stolen. Well, because of the DNA on it being alien, and then you have a bloodline that, there's very strong evidence that he left the Middle East and went to India, that Jesus, the person we know of as Jesus, actually continued to live and had more children, and that also his daughter that he had with Mary, that the wedding in Canaan was his wedding, and that they had a daughter named Sarah, which is a very old name, and that when the two apostles that were surviving, two of them that were surviving, took Mary and Sarah to France, because it's not very far if you use the currents, you can make it to France pretty quickly in the water. They did, and they landed there. And to this day, there's a statue to Sarah the Egyptian, which is what they referred to her as. And it's a statue of a black girl. Bear in mind that there were, limitations as to what they could do with stone. And that this Sarah the Egyptian had miraculous powers, healed the sick, raised the dead, blah, 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 because she was the daughter of this alien dude that we called Jesus. Okay. And so there was another factor in this. If you read Dr. Leonard Schlane's book called The Alphabet versus the Goddess, and he talks about Mary insisting on being buried in the hillside that was a monument to venerate Artemis, and that why would she do that? Why would she be insisting on being buried in the shadow of a pagan goddess? And that got him thinking while he was on a trip through the Middle East and through Europe. And then he researched all this, and he brought it back. There were some amazing conclusions that he made in his book as to why that was. And so you have, that sets the stage, that element, and once you become aware of that, and the other things surrounding it, which we don't have time to go into, that sets the stage for a whole lot of other dominoes that fell into place, such as in France, the Plantard family. The Plantard family is still alive to this day, and they are the direct descendants of the man we knew as Jesus, which means they have alien DNA. So this is part of what's going on when you talk about the Luciferian agenda and these families and what's, what are they? We're talking about off-world involvement. We're talking about dynasties that have to do with bloodlines. It's no different than what we see on Earth, except that this also involves people that aren't from here. And so this is what's going on. We're talking about bloodlines and the consciousness that comes with those bloodlines. We're talking about the control that they need. There was an informer that came out of one of these families who was allowed to speak to the Smoking Gun, it was a group of people that do investigative work much like what you're doing. And there was a series of interviews that this individual gave, and they gave permission to publish it in text form on the internet, which they did, and it's extensive. And he talks about why are they these bad guys? Why do they finance war and create all this misery? Why do they allow for the pedophilia? Why do they allow for the diseases that are intentionally foisted upon the populace? Why do they do all these things that are so horrible? And one of the answers was, and we don't have time, so I'll boil it down. He said, when we get to the in-between parts, in between incarnations, and we're in between reincarnating, we know each other on that other level. And we laugh. The people that were victimized and the people that are victimizing and the good guys who are trying to stop all this, we all laugh together there about the roles we were playing on the physical plane on planet Earth. And then we go back to play these roles again. What we're doing is acting as an adjuvant to stimulate free will. Now let's add another wrinkle, which plays into the Luciferian agenda, as it's called, which is when you reincarnate, and this is the part that I've been researching the most recently. When you reincarnate, they say, oh, you know, the universal experience is there's a tunnel and there's a light, you know, and some people think, oh crap, it's a train and I'm going to get run over. But you go through this tunnel and then they say go to the light and then you see your relatives and all this and that. It's a trick. Because they're bouncing you back to reincarnate when you don't have to anymore. But there are certain off-world intelligences that are farming us through the reincarnation process as a battery, as a source of energy for them. Okay? And that if you're aware of it, you cannot fall for it and you can move on to the next level in the spiral to get you closer to the oversoul. But in the meantime, one of the reasons why our population keeps burgeoning, and we're moving towards 7 billion now, and it's pretty soon it's going to be 12 billion, unsustainable, is because we're not allowed to move on. We keep increasing our numbers, not just because of procreation, but because of this reincarnation and the fast rate of it, because we keep getting redirected back here and back here and back here, that we are in fact being held prisoner and we're being used as livestock, basically, in the spiritual sense. So that is information that I have uncovered, which I think is more tasty toward your research, but it actually holds up in my research as well because of the documentation that I can produce that actually substantiates the kernel of truth that gets it going. So
I think that in part some of this is there's some species that are taking us off world, but not all. And I do think that there is a path of the afterlife, but there's still other species that are able to access different points. So I mean, I agree, but I think there's more to it as well, Steve. You know, there's something more to look at, and there are some insidious ETs that could fit the role of a Satan but there's many of them. That's the problem. You can't just say it's one, you know, but there's some humans that have done some really horrible things.
Well, you know, Rolf made a good point a minute ago, but he talked about how it's us. You know, no one's going to come save you. No one's going to come fight this for you. You know, you never get rid of a bully by having someone come fight the bully for you, because he's going to end up coming back because he knows it wasn't you that drove him away that time. It was this protector of yours. But when they're not around, the bully's going to come back.
Right. But with knowledge is power.
Right.
The more you know and the more you understand, the more you can empower yourself.
Right. And you have to do it. So like Rolf was saying is, don't keep waiting for a Messiah. Don't keep blaming the devil, because all the bad things that we do add to that vibration. And I don't want to speak for Rolf, but I think that's where he was going. And all
Go ahead, Rolf.
Absolutely. That's absolutely where I was going. And I'll add to that, if I see the Messiah, I flip him the bird, turn around and run.
No, that's right, because
that's a fake Messiah, right?
Well, you're being sold a bill of goods, just like what I said. When you get up there and it's like, oh, I get to go back now as a whatever. It's a trick. You could move on, but they don't want you to, because they're using your spiritual energy as a battery for their energy needs, and you're not allowed to leave the earthly plane. You can go, I don't know how many lives, one after another, needlessly. You've lived enough lives to learn your lessons, but they're manipulating the situation. And this goes toward It would, and this speaks to what they refer to as an Antichrist, and this speaks to the Luciferian agenda, which we'll use that phrase for the purposes of this conversation, but it isn't what you think it is. And that a lot of these off-world intelligences, these societies that aren't from here, spirituality is included in their technology. When they get into these, they try to reverse engineer some of these craft that they've come into ownership of, and they go inside and there's no controls. How do they run it? They do it with the power of their life energy that they've learned to incorporate in such a way to interact with their craft that's all they need. It becomes part of them. That's really far beyond where we are. I mean, think about it. If the reptilian life forms, by and large, had not been wiped out 65 some odd million years ago, on other planets, they weren't. They didn't get the whatever it was, whether it be tectonic shift or the meteor or whatever it was that killed them. It was all of a sudden and it was catastrophic. It doesn't matter really what. We don't care. They died. That's all that matters. Other planets, they didn't die, and they've had 65 million more years to evolve. There's your reptilian dudes right there. Because they've evolved, And so we would evolve too. But now we're finding out that we have, and then we keep getting interrupted and we have to keep restarting. We're finding very strong archaeological evidence that's now, like with Dr. Sam Osmanagic and other people who are overseeing digs in places like Serbia and underwater and so forth, where we find that there are strong traces of, not just traces, but, full-blown digs. For instance, in Serbia, there's a group of pyramids very much like the ones in Giza, but they're about 40% bigger. And the topsoil that covers them, and the petrified leaves that are at the bottom of the topsoil and on top of these pyramids dates back to 75,000 years ago. That's the leaves on top of the pyramids, which means those pyramids are probably 250,000 years old, minimum. And they found tunnels in between them with pillars and archways, not just holes dug in the ground, but I'm talking real infrastructure. And they were purposely filled in by someone. And when they got to the end of one of the tunnels at the base of the main pyramid in Serbia, they found a pedestal type thing, and they found an inscription on a green tablet. If you know anything about occult research, a green tablet is very significant.
Tots. Green tablet.
And they found an inscription that they had to get a lady from Oxford to come read because she's the only one on the planet that did enough research that could sort of translate it. They don't know how old it is yet. And basically it says this. And she checked it, and she says, I'm pretty sure this is what this says. And what it says is, the gate is closed. We remain to fight and conquer until the Stargate opens again. And that was important enough to put on a piece of semi-precious stone and leave at the base of the pyramid before they filled in all the tunnels. That really makes you think. Who's manipulating this show? Why are they controlling us? What are they getting out of it? And what is our value to them? And that really bears further discussion that I think is worthy of discussion, because the answers, you get a lot more questions than you do answers, but the answers you can come up with are pretty eye-opening. And I think it's worth, more than one more visit of what that all means.
Well, we're running down in time now, and unfortunately we didn't have much time to go into a deeper discussion, but Steve, you and I had discussed doing a deeper research on this and sharing some of the information that we have on Forbidden America and YouTube, and we'll be bringing that to you at some point, and love to have you come back again. It's always great to see you, and same to you as well, Rolf. Thank you so much for sharing, and this is just providing information and another perspective of a way to look at all of it.
Well, make sure you add me on the thing.
ticket for the